This work was a complete work of fiction. It has no relation to any real persons, organizations, nations, or events.
Welcome back to The Explainer, where we break down complex narratives to help you grasp the real mechanics operating behind the headlines. Today, we're tearing down a really fascinating piece of geopolitical fiction, dissecting it to understand the very real, very gritty strategies of modern statecraft it represents. I want you to picture the scene. It's late April in St. Petersburg. The sky outside is a heavy leaden gray, and a bitter wind is just howling off the Neva River. Inside, a freezing cold, incredibly opulent room in the Constantine Palace, beneath these massive gilded imperial chandeliers, a clandestine meeting is taking place across a giant mahogany table. A silver samovar is quietly steaming right between two men. On one side, you have Russian President Vladimir Putin. On the other, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Now, they aren't sitting there discussing overt troop movements or public nuclear deals. No, they're discussing a highly calculated, fictional plot to quietly strangle an adversary's economy, all without firing a single direct shot. Let's look at exactly how a master plan like this is constructed. Okay, let's dive into this. The entire strategy really hinges on a chilling concept perfectly encapsulated by this quote from Putin in the text. As he's sitting there listening to the Iranian foreign minister's proposal, his cold blue eyes fix right on Araghchi, and he summarizes the plot with an old traditional phrase, strangling with silk cotton. It essentially means to destroy someone softly, slowly, and entirely indirectly. By the time they realize what's actually happening, it's already way too late. In this fictional scenario, the target is Israel. But notice, the method isn't a direct military confrontation at all. It's an economic suffocation. It's designed to drain their resources from the inside out, forcing them to battle crippling energy inflation while simultaneously trying to fund incredibly expensive missile defense systems. But to pull off a strangulation like this, you have to find the exact right pressure point. Section 1. Targeting the Achilles heel. And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem for the plotters. To execute this, they desperately need an Achilles heel. Araghchi knows for a fact that a direct, massive military strike on Israel or its immediate allies would instantly trigger an all-out regional war. That's a total nightmare scenario with unpredictable and disastrous consequences for everyone, including Iran and Russia. So the objective shifts. They have to find a vital artery that lies way outside the immediate conflict zone, an Achilles heel that is absolutely essential for Israel's economic survival, but positioned in a place where an attack won't trigger massive direct retaliation. Enter the BTC pipeline, the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. It starts all the way out in the Caspian Sea in Azerbaijan, pumps straight through Georgia, specifically passing perilously close to the Russian-controlled South Ossetia border, and finally ends up at the Ceyhan port in Turkey. From there, the oil gets shipped right across the Mediterranean. It's a massive critical artery for global energy, and historically a really vital source for Israel. Its physical path across these highly volatile borders makes it a beautifully fragile target for them. But the big question remains, how exactly do you hit it? Well, in the story, Putin is portrayed as a stone-cold pragmatist, and his clinical logic immediately rules out a massive missile strike. I mean, why not just blow the pipeline to pieces and be done with it? Because the geopolitical risks of total destruction are simply off the charts. If Russia or its proxies completely sever that pipeline, it's going to furiously anger Turkey's President Erdogan. And Turkey is a crucial loophole for Russia to bypass Western sanctions. On top of that, destroying the pipeline would push Azerbaijan firmly into the arms of the West. It would ignite a massive conflict in the Caucasus. And since the missiles would likely be launched from South Ossetia, it directly implicates Russia. It's just too loud, too destructive, and the blowback would be immense. For Putin, the risk-to-reward ratio here is completely unbalanced. Section 2, a strategy of slow poison. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Araghchi pivots. This is where his strategic brilliance in this fictional scenario really shines. Instead of a sledgehammer, he leans in and proposes a totally alternative approach. He tells Putin they don't need to administer a drastic medicine. What they actually need is a slow poison. If total destruction is totally off the table, the goal shifts entirely to manufacturing persistent, paralyzing doubt. You don't actually need to stop the oil completely. You just need to make the global markets terrified that it might stop at any second. Think about the crazy contrast between conventional warfare and this new breed of deniable hybrid warfare. On one side, you have total destruction, direct missiles, the oil stops entirely, a literal war sparks. But on the other side, the slow poison. Araghchi proposes unexplained cyber failures at pump stations near the border. Oh, they get fixed in a few days, but then a week later, an unidentified drone crashes just a few dozen meters away from the pipeline. It doesn't blow a hole in the steel. It doesn't even stop the flow of oil. It literally just leaves scorch marks on the ground nearby. It's highly localized, it's completely deniable, but the psychological impact of those scorch marks, it is exactly what they want. Section 3. The economic domino effect. Let's move to the next step and see how this builds, because those scorch marks are just the catalyst. The plot deliberately shifts from a physical, military domain directly into the realm of macroeconomics. This right here is the core mechanism of the whole operation. The plotters understand perfectly well that global energy and insurance markets are incredibly skittish. A tiny, highly localized physical disruption in the rugged terrain of Georgia can instantly trigger a massive financial wave that crashes down thousands of miles away in the Middle East, building into an unstoppable chain reaction. Step 1, those unexplained accidents and near misses we just talked about. This creates the phantom of uncertainty. Step 2, the insurance markets totally panic. Lloyd's of London and other syndicates will instantly hike the insurance premiums for tankers and pipelines in the region to exorbitant, prohibitive levels. Step 3, all those insurance costs are passed directly down the supply chain, creating astronomical energy inflation for the end buyer. And finally, Step 4, Israel faces internal economic suffocation. They are already burning through their national budget to fund missile defense systems. Now they're forced to pay skyrocketing prices just to keep the lights on. They are financially drained from the inside out. But wait, there's another brilliant layer to the scheme involving Turkey. Remember, Turkey controls the Ceyhan port, where the oil is actually loaded onto ships. Now Erdogan faces immense domestic pressure regarding Israel, but overtly cutting off the oil would violate international contracts and invite severe legal and economic backlash. This slow poison strategy gives Erdogan the perfect out: force majeure. It's a legal concept meaning unforeseeable circumstances that prevent someone from fulfilling a contract. If the pipeline is experiencing temporary glitches or safety issues due to these mystery drones, Erdogan can simply halt the flow, claim force majeure, satisfy his domestic base, and face absolutely no international legal consequences. It gives him total, 100% plausible deniability. Section 4, the geopolitical winners. So, the crucial point is figuring out who actually benefits from all this. As this intricate plan is laid out, the text describes Putin silently contemplating the ornate frescoes on the ceiling of the Constantin Palace. He's calculating the dividends. In the grand chessboard of global geopolitics, this manufactured chaos isn't just about hurting an adversary. It's about what the plotters gain for themselves. The ultimate payoff is remarkably high for an operation that requires so little actual investment or direct risk. Who actually wins here? First up, Russia. By creating instability in global energy markets, oil prices inevitably spike. This sudden surge in revenue acts as a massive financial stimulus for Russia's treasury, helping to fund their ongoing war efforts. Plus, a prolonged crisis in the Middle East totally distracts the United States, pulling their focus and resources away from Ukraine. For Iran, they achieved their primary goal of economically choking Israel without ever triggering a direct regime-threatening war. And for Turkey, as we just mentioned, Erdogan gets to passively satisfy his domestic sentiment without violating a single international trade law. It is literally a win-win-win for everyone involved in the plot, all born from a few scorch marks in Georgia. The meeting in St. Petersburg slowly draws to a close. Araghchi promises that the operation will be completely under the radar, too small to even catch the eye of Russian border guards. Putin, casually sipping his now cold tea, gives his final chilling approval. He says, "Complete destruction is not allowed. Leave no footprints. But facilities sometimes have unexpected breakdowns, especially near that unstable border." Araghchi simply nods and replies, "Accidents can happen anywhere." He turns off his tablet. In the silent room, you can almost hear the dry, sharp sound of porcelain hitting the mahogany table echoing lightly. The Deniable plot is set in motion. Now, obviously, this story might be a work of geopolitical fiction, but the hybrid warfare mechanisms it describes, those are deeply rooted in reality. It really forces us to step back and ask a very uncomfortable question: how fragile is our global energy infrastructure against manufactured uncertainty? We often spend so much time worrying about massive wars and giant explosions, but perhaps the real threat isn't total destruction at all. Perhaps it's just a few unexplained cyber glitches, a few scorched patches of Earth, and the terrifying, slow-acting poison of economic panic. Think about how vulnerable our global supply lines really are to deliberate, highly deniable accidents. It's definitely something to keep in mind the next time you see a headline about a sudden, unexplained spike in oil prices. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep questioning what's really happening behind the scenes.